There was a time when conversation was not just a way to pass time. It was how people understood each other, how they solved conflicts, how they shared wisdom, how they built trust, how they passed on memory, values, humor, pain, and hope. A real conversation could change the direction of a day. Sometimes, it could change the direction of a life. But today, meaningful conversation feels harder to find. People talk constantly, but often feel unheard. Messages move quickly, but understanding moves slowly. Opinions are everywhere, but patience is rare. We are more connected than ever, yet many people feel emotionally distant. This is one of the quiet losses of modern life. We have not stopped communicating. We have simply become less skilled at conversation. And there is a difference. Communication can be fast. Conversation requires presence. Communication can happen through a sentence, a comment, a reaction, or an emoji. Conversation asks for attention. Even our own inner lives become less understood because conversation is one of the ways we learn to hear ourselves. This episode is about one of the lost human skills. The ability to have meaningful conversation. Not just talking. Not debating to win. Not performing intelligence. Not filling silence. But the deeper art of meeting another human being through words. Meaningful conversation begins with something that sounds simple, but has become surprisingly difficult: presence. To be present in conversation means you are not merely waiting for your turn to speak. You are listening, not just to the words, but to the person behind the words. You are noticing tone or present enough to say it. This is one reason so many conversations stay on the surface. How are you? I'm fine. How was your day? Busy. What's new? Not much. These exchanges are not wrong. Everyday conversation has its place. Small talk can be gentle. It can open the door. It can create warmth. But when all conversation remains small, something human begins to starve. People do not only need updates, they need understanding. They need someone to ask, what has really been on your mind? They need someone who can listen without rushing to fix them. They need someone who can disagree without humiliating them. They need someone who can sit with silence instead of escaping it. That is rare now. And because it is rare, many people carry heavy thoughts alone. They are surrounded by contacts, followers, co-workers, neighbors, and relatives, yet still feel emotionally unspoken. Not because no one exists, but because meaningful conversation has become harder to enter. One reason is speed. Modern communication is fast, but the human heart is not always fast. A person may need time to explain what they mean. Time to find honest words. Time to trust the listener. Time to admit confusion. Time to say something imperfectly before saying it clearly. But in a fast culture, patience runs thin. We interrupt. We assume. We categorize. We react to one phrase before hearing the whole thought. And once people sense that they will be misunderstood quickly, they begin to speak more carefully or stop speaking deeply at all. This is how meaningful conversation declines. Not always through cruelty, sometimes through hurry. Another reason is that many people have become more interested in being right than being real. A conversation becomes a contest. Who has the better point? Who sounds more informed? Who can correct the other person? Who can expose the weakness in someone else's argument? There is a place for debate. There is a place for truth, evidence, moral clarity, and correction. But not every conversation is supposed to be a courtroom. Sometimes the purpose is not to defeat someone. Sometimes the purpose is to understand what life looks like from where they are standing. That does not mean agreeing with everything. It means listening deeply enough to know what you are responding to. Many arguments continue because people are not responding to each other's actual meaning. They are responding to what they assume the other person means. And assumption is one of the enemies of conversation. It closes the door before the person has fully entered. Meaningful conversation requires a different posture. It says, let me understand before I answer. Let me listen before I judge. Let me ask before I assume. Let me make room for complexity. This is not weakness. It is maturity. Because the deepest conversations are not built on speed or dominance. They are built on trust. And trust grows when people feel they do not have to perform, defend, or hide every part of themselves. But many people are afraid of deeper conversation now. Afraid of being judged. Afraid of being misunderstood. Afraid of saying the wrong thing. Afraid of silence. Afraid of vulnerability. Afraid that if they speak honestly, the other person may not know how to receive it. So conversation becomes safer, but less meaningful. We talk about schedules, weather, purchases, entertainment, problems, complaints, and news. But avoid the deeper questions. What are you learning about yourself? What has been heavy lately? What are you afraid to admit? What do you miss? What are you hoping for? What kind of person are you becoming? These questions are not appropriate in every setting, and they should never be forced. But a life with no room for questions like these becomes emotionally thin. People begin to live beside each other instead of with each other. This affects families. People can share a home and still not know each other deeply. They can eat together and still not speak honestly. They can solve logistics, pay bills, arrange schedules, and manage responsibilities while the inner lives of each person remain hidden. This affects friendships. Some friendships survive on nostalgia, jokes, or routine, but never move into real emotional presence. People may spend years together and still not know what the other person is carrying. This affects society. When meaningful conversation declines, public life becomes more reactive. People stop trying to understand complexity and begin speaking in slogans. They stop asking questions and start defending identities. They stop listening for truth and listen only for confirmation. And this affects the self. Because conversation is not only how we reveal what we think, it is sometimes how we discover what we think. There are moments when you do not fully understand your own heart, until someone listens patiently enough for you to hear yourself. A good conversation can bring clarity. It can organize confusion. It can soften anger. It can uncover grief. It can challenge self-deception. It can remind you that you are not alone. That is why meaningful conversation is not a luxury. It is part of emotional health. But it requires skills that modern life does not always teach. The first skill is listening without immediately taking over. Many people listen only long enough to connect the other person's story to their own. Someone says, "I've been tired lately," and the response becomes, "I know, I've been exhausted too." That may be well, but sometimes the better response is simpler. Tell me more. Those 3 words can open a door. Tell me more. They say, I am not rushing you. I am not replacing your experience with mine. I am willing to stay with what you are saying. The second skill is asking better questions. Not interrogating. Not prying. Not forcing someone to reveal what they are not ready to share, but gently inviting depth. Instead of only asking, "How was your day?" we might ask, "What part of today stayed with you? What has been taking most of your energy lately? What helped you feel steady this week? What have you been thinking about but not saying much?" Good questions slow conversation down. They make room for honesty. The third skill is resisting the urge to fix everything. When someone shares pain, many people immediately offer solutions. Do this. Try that. Don't worry. Look on the bright side. At least it's not worse. Sometimes advice is needed. But often, people first need to feel understood. A person who is hurting may not need a quick answer. They may need presence. They may need someone to say, "That sounds heavy. I can understand why that affected you. I'm here with you." You don't have to explain it perfectly. This kind of response does not solve everything, but it restores dignity. It tells the person that their inner life is not an inconvenience. The fourth skill is disagreeing without dehumanizing. This may be one of the most urgent lost skills today. We need to recover the ability to say, "I see this differently, but I still want to understand you." Without this skill, every disagreement becomes a threat. People avoid hard conversations entirely, or they enter them prepared for battle. But meaningful conversation does not require identical opinions. It requires enough respect to keep the person visible while discussing the issue. A society that cannot disagree well will eventually struggle to live together. A family that cannot disagree honestly will bury tension. A friendship that cannot survive difference may never become deep. So the goal is not to remove disagreement. The goal is to humanize it. To ask, what led you to see it that way? What experience shaped that view? What do you think I may be missing? Where do we actually agree, even if we differ elsewhere? These questions do not weaken conviction. They strengthen understanding. The fifth skill is becoming comfortable with silence. Not every pause needs to be filled. Sometimes silence means someone is thinking. Sometimes it means emotion is rising. Sometimes it means the conversation has reached a deeper place. But many people panic when silence appears. They joke, change the subject, check the phone, or rush into another point. Meaningful conversation often needs silence. Silence gives words time to land. It gives the heart time to decide whether it is safe to continue. And this may be the turning point of the episode. We do not lose meaningful conversation only because people stop talking. We lose it when people stop feeling safe enough to be honest. We lose it when attention disappears. When patience disappears. When curiosity disappears. When every conversation becomes performance, debate, distraction, or transaction. But it can be recovered. And it does not require grand speeches. It begins in ordinary moments. Put the phone away when someone is speaking. Ask one better question. Listen without rushing to respond. Let silence breathe. Tell the truth gently. Disagree without contempt. Notice when someone is trying to say something deeper. Create space for the conversation beneath the conversation. Because often, the most important thing someone says is not the first thing they say. It is what comes after they feel safe. That is why meaningful conversation requires patience. It is not extracted. It is invited. And when it appears, it reminds us of something essential. Human beings are not only information systems. We are stories, memories, questions, wounds, hopes, contradictions, longings. And we need spaces where those deeper parts can be spoken without being immediately judged, ignored, corrected, or turned into entertainment. The decline of meaningful conversation is not just a social problem. It is a spiritual and emotional problem. Because when people cannot speak deeply, they often begin to suffer quietly. And quiet suffering can become distance. Distance can become resentment. Resentment can become disconnection. Disconnection can become loneliness. But one honest conversation can interrupt that pattern. One sincere question. One patient listener. One moment where someone feels truly heard. That may not fix everything, but it can begin something. So maybe the recovery of meaningful conversation begins with a simple decision: to be more present than distracted, more curious than certain, more human than performative, more willing to understand than eager to win. The next time someone speaks to you, listen a little longer. The next time you are tempted to interrupt, pause. The next time a conversation stays on the surface, gently open a deeper door. And the next time someone trusts you with something honest, treat it carefully. Because meaningful conversation is not just about words. It is about the kind of world we create between us. A world where people can be heard, where truth can be spoken, where disagreement does not destroy dignity, where silence is not feared, where connection becomes deeper than contact. In a noisy age, this may be one of the most radical human skills we can recover. Not simply the ability to talk, but the ability to truly meet. And if this reflection speaks to you, consider subscribing to Wellness. This series is about recovering the human skills. Modern life is slowly weakening. Reflection, patience, listening, solitude, rest, deep thinking, and now meaningful conversation. Because the world does not only need more voices, it needs more people who know how to listen, speak, and understand with depth. That is where real conversation begins. And maybe, that is where real connection begins again.